Yes, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rick Huijbregts, and I'm the Global Lead for Smart Cities at Stantec, as well as the Industry Fellow with Intelligent Buildings. And today I'm joined here with Kimberly Bertz, who has a career in change management, organizational strategy, and operations, and she leads DE&I, and we'll talk about that in a second, strategy and employment affairs for Wells Fargo, as well as David Flynn, who's the CEO at Blue Skyre, and with a career of more than 25 years that he has worked in facilities management with firms like JLL, Grubb & Ellis, WeWork, Citibank, and UBS. And together we're going to have, in the next 9.5 minutes, a little conversation around ESG and DEI. And of course, as we saw that and we looked at the alphabet soup, what is this all about? And we're going to try to kind of break that down. And of course, it's the irony is not lost on us that we have three Caucasian, two middle-aged men and one millennial sitting here talking about DE&I, but at least the conversation is happening, and I think that's what we're trying to discuss. So, Kimberly, maybe just to get it going, can you explain a little bit what DEI is and what it means, and then David, how that ties to ESG?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. So DE&I is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And diversity is all about making sure that we've got a broad representation of people in our companies and in our customer base that represent the population. Equity is making sure that we've got the right structures to support those folks. And then inclusion is making sure that we're getting the right voices in the room, that once we have that diversity, that we're actually bringing them into the fold. So that's what DE&I is all about.
And the way DE&I fits into ESG is it's the S part of ESG with environment, social, and governance. And ESG is about how investors and lenders are looking at companies and how they are performing in these three areas.
Perfect, thank you. That's very helpful. Maybe, and I said the companies you're with, but maybe you can very briefly talk about your role and how you are prioritizing D&I in your respective organizations. Kimberly.
Sure. So the reason that DE&I is important to us, Wells Fargo obviously is a huge global bank, and we have branches, we have financial services products, and we need to make sure that the way that we're serving our customers is representative of them. So if they need a checking account, if they need a credit card, if they need a home mortgage, we need to understand where our customers are. And the way that we think that we do that is starting with our team member population and having a really representative employee base. And so that's what our focus is on, engaged employees and inclusive workplace.
We'll get to, sorry, one second. Is this at a new intensity since recently, or this has always been kind of a lens that you have applied?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because we've been focused on DE&I for the better part of a decade, but it's certainly ramping up, right? We have a new focus on it. We know that we need to make progress more quickly, and perhaps one of the things that we're seeing really brought to the forefront is we need to measure our progress so that we understand how we're doing and where we need to go.
How about you, David?
Well, DE&I, ESG is very important to Blue Skyre since we are a certified woman-owned business. And our emphasis on ESG is across all three pillars of ESG. So what we do is we help companies align their strategy within the real estate group with their overall corporate strategy. So it's about one coming in with helping them with a strategy and then using one of the tools that we have, which is ESG Focus, to prioritize the initiatives. Takes off the Excel spreadsheets, takes the gut reaction out of it, gives it a scientific conclusion, quantifiable, so that, okay, so everything is ranked and they can make a decision based upon a science-based decision. So we come in with the environmental aspect of alignment, the social, looking at who you're working with, employees, contractors, the well-being of the space, and then tracking all that so they can report it and as part of the governance part of the equation.
So you're touching a little bit on the tracking and the increased use of technology to do some of this, of course. And we are here at Realcomm, which is a huge event at the intersection of digital transformation and our built environment. And so I guess one of the question I have, and maybe many of us, why are we talking about DEI here, since we talk about sensors and integration and platforms and smart buildings? So you touched a little bit on kind of the reporting. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit? And then maybe, Kimberly, what other opportunities do you see technology have to really enhance or reimagine DEI in our organizations?
So with where the technology comes in for our part of the work is just, for example, contractors. Who are you hiring? Are you hiring the woman-owned businesses? Are you hiring the minority-owned businesses? Are you hiring the vets and other disadvantaged groups? And then it's becoming more important now that they be certified. And some are self-certified, and some companies will accept that, but others want something more than self-certification, because so often it can be, or too often it can be a veneer. Okay, it's a minority owned or a woman owned, but there's someone else behind the scenes that is not. So the certification is really important to ensure the integrity of that certification of that minority woman-owned business enterprise that is being proclaimed. So using technology for vendor management and getting that data so you can report it, because of the ESG, that is equally as important as the environmental utility reporting, for example, that goes on. Mm-hmm. So that's where the And there's technologies out there that offer that with some of the procurement tools.
So what roles do you see for technology?
So if you take the premise that everything is going to be impacted by technology, we should all be thinking about it. From a real estate perspective, there's a number of different areas. So you mentioned, different demographics of people coming into the workplace. So how do we support a workplace that is inclusive and available for all? There's a lot of things that we can do from a technology standpoint in the buildings, but also the hybrid workplace is here to stay. And so how do you create that seamless environment so that people of all different backgrounds can work together? That's one, certainly, but then also the reporting and just really standing up and having a way to look at DE&I and measure DE&I is a big, I think is a big focus for technology, as we have in office, we have virtual, we have even, what is AI going to do to the metaverse, and how does that actually help us understand our demographics? So technology is going to really help. We need to be looking at it, but it's also going to help propel DE&I forward.
So now with ESG being kind of mandated often, there's a lot of reporting requirements, and that's just like leads. It's good that there's a little bit of a standard push. Yeah. But there's maybe also a risk that this could become a little bit performative. I just need to fill out my spreadsheets and get my numbers right. And I know, Kimberly, your background in change management, so how do we make sure this doesn't become a checkbox, but this become really part of the DNA of all of our organizations, that we prioritize diversity and inclusion?
So I think that's a great question. And number one, is just the right thing to do. We all need to be looking at how does DE&I impact us? But from a business standpoint, we also can see there's a clear business imperative for it. Companies that embrace ESG or DE&I actually are performing better. They're well positioned to take on strategic challenges. And then the products, the products or the services that they deliver, if they're coming from teams that are more diverse, typically those products have a broader reach, and therefore the financial returns are there. And so, of course, that's something that most companies are interested in, is, ultimately, how does this impact the bottom line? So I think that's a really important piece just to keep in mind, is if we set this up and we all have a role in DE&I, the culture that we set, the people that we hire, the way that we cultivate pipelines, we're actually setting our companies up for more success down the long road.
And getting people to care is so important. Just filling a box because I have to do it. But that care part is really important, so that it becomes part of the culture. It becomes a culture, one of compliance, but one of caring about compliance, so that you're getting all the right factors in place with the right people in the right place, all the right tools.
So other than not being able to have your meet the required standards, I guess, but what would be the risk for our industry that is trying to transform the way we think about buildings and space and design and architecture? What's the risk if we don't get this right?
Well, it's table stakes right now. There's no avoiding it. Those that are avoiding it, I think it's more out of fear, because they don't understand what ESG means. and its impact on them. But with the SEC getting involved in setting regulations and becoming out soon, and especially for the global players working over in Europe, who is far ahead of us, and in APAC, they have to get on board with it. So it's a matter of caring about why that has to be done.
Yep.
With less than 10 seconds left, the biggest question is, are there any takeaways or any recommendations for those that are watching that are considering implementing a D&I process? So maybe, Kimberly, do you have a thought?
I do. I think it's something that we all need to take responsibility for. In any role, there's a way that you can impact culture, that you can look at the people that you're surrounding yourself with and that you're hiring, and just look at it as a huge opportunity. Yeah.
Great. With that, I think we're out of time. Unfortunately, we could talk for hours about this, and if we have to stop, I hope everyone watching from afar or here will continue to the conversation. I think agree with all the points you made. This is incredibly essential for us to create diverse and inclusive organizations, which ultimately will lead to diverse and inclusive and equitable spaces and smarter buildings. So thank you so much, and thank you, Realcomm, for having us. It's been a great event. Thank you.
Thank you.